Hey, John.
Hey, Nick.
How are you?
How are things in Wales?
Much brighter than we have been. So the sun is back out over here.
Great.
Not quite bright enough for my sun hat, but it's nice after the rain. How's life in the shed?
All good. All good. My daddy long leg friends and I are enjoying the hot weather. Uh, now it's all is good here in Oklahoma City. We're still in the wake of our
Yeah.
national championship, our world championship, whatever Um,
Wow. World,
yeah.
World Championship for.
Oh my goodness. I forget that you're from the land of rugby. The Oklahoma City Thunder have won the what is it? The NBA championship. Yeah.
Uh, well,
Great times.
I'm pleased to say just this last week, Wales has managed to beat that great rugby playing nation of Japan.
Whew.
We have we have high hopes for beating Italy this coming winter.
Let's hope the boys are practicing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what are we doing today?
Great. Ickabog!
Oh, right. There we are. There we are. Wow.
Go
Now
ahead.
we've
Yeah. Well, just very quickly, I'm going to run
yeah.
through this. Hey, it's Rowling's 60th birthday, and uh, it's in Japan. That's the Kanreki, which is the second birth. Basically, you've gone through the full 12-year cycle of animals 5 times in about the elements. Rowling is a wood snake, and so we've had the metal snake and the fire snake and the soil snake and the water snake, and now we're back again to wood snake. And Rowling is about to enter her second life, and Nick and he's at the lake and I'm in the shed because of her metaphor of writing, which is that she gets her ideas out of her unresolved issues and core beliefs, which she calls her lake. Nice water reference there for the unconscious mind. And the shed, this is the deliberate artistry place where she goes to work her magic to take this Mary Sue material and turn it into archetypal story that has a global audience. So we're going to celebrate her Kanreki by usher her into her second life by reviewing all of her work, the 21 published stories, which is a larger list than Rowling acknowledges. I think she said Troubled Blood was her 13th book, and
Yeah.
so I mean, she doesn't count the stuff that we're kind of snarky about, the Cursed Child or the film screenplays, things like that. She just takes those off the shelf as not really being hers. Um, but we've covered them all so far. We're doing it in
Yeah.
sequence. Apparently, though, she does count Troubled Blood before the Ickabog. She does
Okay.
them in publication sequence. We're doing
Publication.
them by
Right. Okay.
publication of the book.
Yeah.
Today we are up to the political fairy tale, and Nick, I'm just gonna go take a nap because you're gonna have to explain the context of Rowling's publishing online for free
Yeah.
this book.
So we'll do a little bit of the history first. So where we left you on the last episode with Crimes of Grindelwald, that was sort of autumn winter 2018, and then through 2019, there's not a lot happening. So Rowling is tweeting a lot of politics, very anti-Jeremy Corbyn, who's the leader of the UK Labour Party at the time. Brexit was sort of happening, but nobody was really agreeing what Brexit should look like. So she's tweeting a lot about that. Until December 2019, when some busybody on the internet and Twitter noticed that she was sporting a new tattoo that said Solve et Coagula. Now, I didn't know what on earth that meant, but I knew somebody that would know what that meant. So as fast as I could, I messaged him and Beatrice Groves and said, have you noticed?
Gosh. Beatrice and I immediately, our heads exploded. I posted, I think my post, because it really went through the alchemical symbolism of Solway and then possible meanings for it as a writer, putting that on our hand. Probably the first thing that pops up if you put in Solway at Coagula, J.K. Rowling, if you do a Google search or a DuckDuckGo search or something. And then Beatrice, I think a year later, wrote a much more comprehensive 2 pieces, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's it is interesting. I just the Beatrice aside here, in Literary Illusion, she says almost nothing about alchemy or chiastic structure, really. And I was like, why did you leave that out? I mean, I was I'd like to think of myself as her biggest fan at that point, because you didn't know her yet. So,
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, you'd already done that, John." I just don't think she thought it was legitimate. I think it was sort of like the, Cromwell was Shakespeare, school. This is just, so that's supposed to be going there. And so, anyways, when it came on the wrist, though, then Beatrice Groves was all in, and we got to really get the benefit, because there are few people. There's no one that I know, Nick, that knows more about early modern drama than J.K. Rowling, than Beatrice Groves. Mm-hmm. All right, maybe that's a contest between the two of them. Who knows more about this? Anyway, yeah, that was a big event, but there were 2 events that were going to dwarf that event by the end of the year.
Yeah. So we had that very memorable BBC radio episode, The Museum of Curiosity, that featured J.K. Rowling. It was a Christmas episode. And this is where she first explains her lake and shed metaphor, which is the basis of this series that you're watching right now. And
it's really the foundation of Rowling studies going forward from that point. I mean, she said, you have to understand the lake to get my process. Yeah. That changed everything.
Yes.
Rewrite my stupid PhD thesis.
And then there was a tweet on the 19th of December, 2019. Rowling sent out a tweet, which now, if you're watching this series, you'll know that John and I have few equals when it comes to admiration of J.K. Rowling as a wordsmith. I like to think if you're watching this, you're also a fan of the way she can put a phrase together. But my feeling is this tweet was written by committee. It was written by her PR consultants with J.K. Rowling. And I think the brief was, I want to come out in support of Mayor Forstater, and I want to do it in the least objectionable way possible. But she understood. I think just in the time between the tattoo and the tweet is too short for her to understand that this was going to be a defining break with a large section of the fandom. So I'm going to read the tweet out to you. If you are of a nervous disposition, this is your trigger warning. You may want to press
mute.
We
don't give trigger warnings. Stop.
Trying to protect people's mental health. John, I could literally kill someone with this tweet. Okay. And the tweet goes, dress however you please. Call yourself whatever you like. Sleep with any consenting adult who'll have you. Live your best life in peace and security. But force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real? ? Hashtag I stand with Mayor. Hashtag this is not a drill.
That last piece is the part that few people talk about. This is not a drill.
Yeah.
That's her saying we're going to war. I mean, this that's what you say if there's an air raid siren or a fire alarm.
Yeah.
That you need to evacuate. Everything has to change. This is not a drill. We're under real threat of bodily and social harm if we don't address this issue right now. I think it may have been just that last piece that really caused the Solway explosion, where she says J.K. Rowling is going to war.
And the reaction was incredible, wasn't it? When you look at the measured phrasing used, just the hysteria that met it, and the ignorance of many commentators. And I myself, if you go back into the archives of Hogwarts Professor, you'll see my first comment after John posts about the tweet. And I expressed displeasure because, good socialist that I am, I know inclusion is good. Somehow, although I didn't quite understand it, but everyone was telling me this tweet was against inclusion, so therefore that must be bad. And literally, that was the sum of my knowledge on this issue.
I have to read this. I have no recall of this. I wonder what I said about the tweet. I hope I said something like "damn right," but who knows what I wrote? I do know that by that next summer, I had been Rowling. This was a controlled demolition.
Yeah,
all the way at Coagula. She knew what she was looking for. You see that in the speech. She also gives a speech at the end of that year, right? She accepts the RFK Award for whatever, courage.
So that was so it was at that speech. She travels to New York for that she but that was at a film premiere from the same trip, but a different event. That photograph was taken where the tattoo was visible. But it's at that point, so it's almost immediately before that tweet. Now the timing of the tweet, the hashtag I stand with Maya. Maya is Maya Forstater. She was a consultant working for a financial and grant giving firm. She was gender critical. She had gender critical beliefs, and that is, she believes that sex is important in policy and law, and sex is defined biologically. And if you define sex biologically, there are only two sexes, male and female. In some species, you could be male and female, and theoretically, but I don't think it's ever been found, you could be neither. But if you're talking sexes, there's only two of them. And she was sacked basically for holding these beliefs. Now, if you got all of your news via Twitter, which I would never recommend, then Maya Forstater apparently was sacked for physically and verbally abusing transgender colleagues. Not true. For upsetting transgender clients. Not true. This literally was. So where Rowling says, but force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real, literally that was the reason why she lost that tribunal. Now, thankfully, more than a year, I think, although there was some COVID delays in there as well, more than a year later, she won her appeal. And
summer of 2021.
Yeah. So but that was it. This was J.K. Rowling has come out as a TERF, trans exclusionary radical feminist. And then she goes silent. She goes silent on Twitter. There's no public engagements. There's no changes to her website. She goes completely silent while this Solway storm rages up around her.
Do you think this was planned? That silence was part of you mentioned the marketing crew potentially having been involved in the writing of this. That they said, okay, here's what you do: you explode the landmine, and then you wait for the building to collapse. You don't need to do any other charges. You don't need to continue to throw grenades at the building. You just let it drop.
Yeah.
and then you begin to rebuild the Coagula. You need to recongeal your person around that. Do you think that was like they understand how this works?
I would, yes, I would think so. She's certainly taken advice. That's not to say that J.K. Rowling always accepts the advice she's given. But in this case, it looks like
you
that
think
was
maybe
true.
they tried to talk her out of this, Nick? You think maybe they said, "Well, maybe we could"?
I think they've worked with Rowling long enough that I don't think they would try. I think they limit themselves to explaining the likely effect of it, and then looking at strategies for mitigating that. I couldn't imagine working for J.K. Rowling in that position and saying, "Joe, you can't do that." Watch
Yeah,
me.
this is funny because I've lost allies because they've told me I can't say things, and I've just said, you can say a lot of things to me. You can disagree with me. I will provide you the platform to say what an idiot I am, but you can't tell me I can't say things. That's crazy.
So
Um,
what do you think it would take to bring J.K. Rowling out of her shell? An international
a certain
emergency.
Chinese virus. What do you think?
An international emergency. Now, I'm going to talk about COVID. I'm going to talk about the coronavirus very much from a UK perspective. Um, so it was pretty frightening in the UK. We'd seen the horrible pictures from China. Italy was having a really very rough time. The hospitals couldn't cope. The morgues couldn't cope. It was generally pretty frightening, but there were some good things as well. The lockdown in the UK was overwhelmingly supported. The call for volunteers was overwhelmingly supported. Um, our prime minister at the time, who fellow socialists considered a bit of a joke, actually appeared statesmanlike. He was making decisions, he was making rules, and we like our rules. Yeah, we found out about the parties later, John. That was all a bit disillusioning. But at the time, there really was a feeling of this was a problem, but as a nation, we'll pull together. We can do this. And J.K. Rowling came back. So one of the first things she did, she was asked. The UK has no history of homeschooling, really. I mean, ever since pre-Victorian times, when we stopped having governesses, everyone goes to school. So
Shame on
now,
you all. Shame on you
I,
all.
but now,
When are you going to evolve into Americans, Nick? When are you? When does this? When is your chrysalis where you realize that state education is the foundation of fascism?
we'd be missing the delights of Hogsmeade Comprehensive School, John, if that was true.
That's right. That's
right. So she was approached by a teacher, and probably lots of teachers, but it was one she replied to. So the teachers wanted to use Harry Potter as sort of a hook for their remote lessons. All their kids was zooming in, and the teacher wanted to read them Harry Potter as sort of a group activity. Of course, licenses do not allow you to do that. In the classroom, you can do it, but you can't broadcast it over the internet. So J.K. Rowling opened the licenses for the duration of the lockdown so that teachers could read Harry Potter to their classes. Now, that's a little thing, but very shortly after that, so just over a week, on the 1st of April, in conjunction with Warner Brothers, they started a website, Harry Potter at Home, and this was a whole host of resources themed around Harry Potter. The digital license for the print edition was opened up, so all of the children could have their own local copy of the text for Philosopher's Stone. All of those celebrities that were still talking to Rowling after the tweet, or if they weren't talking to Rowling, they were at least talking to Warner Brothers and could potentially see a contract in it, volunteered to read one of the chapters from Philosopher's Stone, and J.K. Rowling also read one of them, where you got a nice, clear image of her Soloway Coagula tattoo as well.
Did Daniel, Rupert, and Emma, did they read a chapter in this? Are they still on board with Harry Potter to that?
Do you know, I'd have to check, but I think Daniel did. I think Dan read one. I'm not sure about, I'm pretty sure Emma didn't. I'm not sure about Rupert. Photos. So she was very active on Twitter, which pleased my geeky heart, because she had photos of where she lived in Clapham Junction. She had photos of the hotel she was staying at in Manchester when she came up with the rules for Quidditch. There was a photo of the tree under which she first came up with wand law.
Have you found it, Nick?
I've looked. I haven't found it yet, but I'm still looking for that. Do you know how similar trees look to each other? I must have looked at
Nick,
thousands
all trees are unique. Wow.
I was nearly forget the color-coded bookcase. Now that gave me hundreds of hours of happy searching, trying to decipher the bindings and the covers of all the books that was on her bookcase.
And hundreds of your hours, and a great delight and profit to all of us that want to know the books that she's read and has on her shelf.
It is quite. I go back to that resource every now and again because it is useful. Louise Freeman noticed Rattenbury in Lethal White was actually referenced to a famous criminal trial. Now, having done the work on her bookcase, I knew she had a book that contained that trial, so we can sort of trace the allusion to the actual cover where she got that information from. And then, after all this good things to us poor lockdown citizens, there came these mysterious header changes, which was just like different sections of ripped packing tape over a series of about a week. And then we zoomed back and we saw one of the boxes from our attic with the manuscript in, and this was the announcement of the Ickabog.
So the tape was over a box? I thought it was on a mirror or something.
No, so it was taped to the top of this box was a handwritten the Ickabog. Now, don't get me wrong. I can be as cynical as you sometimes. She may have just taped that to the top of a box, but I like to think that's how she knew which box in her attic contained that manuscript.
All my boxes are labeled. Yeah, you said you've put me in. I'm not skeptical. I'm cynical. That's terrible, Nick. I just think that there's two fairy tales involved here. One of them is the story, which is a political fairy tale, and then there's the fairy tale of the Genesis. It's Genesis, and when she released it, when she rewrote it.
Well, as my late contribution, let's have a look at this Genesis. So the story goes. This was a story that she wrote and read to her children when they were little. She claims most of the first draft was completed between Potter books, intending to publish after Deathly Hallows. Now, we know that from two sources. So that, and I looked, and the earliest source I could find was A Year in the Life documentary. Now, that was filmed between 2006 and 2007, where she mentions the political fairy tale. And at that point, it was described as currently being written and probably the next thing to publish. But Beatrice Groves and Patricio Tarantino, I think independently, found an article in the Tatler from January 2006, or an earlier source, and they're saying that a new children's book is also complete. It's about a monster and is what Rowling calls a political fairy story. It's aimed at children younger than those who read Harry Potter. I haven't even told my publisher about this. So we haven't got the title. We know it's a political fairy story. We know it's the next thing to get published after Deathly Hallows. Now, not long after that, so it was actually during the publicity tour to Deathly Hallows, she was on an aircraft.
I'm gonna interrupt here, Nick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that the only time she could have written this was between Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix. That 3-year period where she was, basically trying to get a grip on her life, her new marriage, but the children weren't there. So maybe that doesn't work either. Reading children's and newborns isn't really a thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just okay. Scratch that. I just can't imagine her writing these things in the madness of putting together Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows and demands. But maybe she carved out that safe spot where she could do it. I don't know.
I mean, they can't have been too young. We know that it made a sufficient impression upon her children that they could be asked their valuable opinion about what we can cut, what we have to include, what their favorite bits are. So they recalled the story. So not long after that, it was on the tour for Deathly Hallows, she had the idea for Casual Vacancy. I think the idea for Casual Vacancy was the hook about the local council election. But that became the first thing that she was going to publish. And of course, at the same time, simultaneously, she's writing the Robert Galbraith series. We do know, because in a July 2017 CNN interview, finally an interviewer asked her, "Hey, Joe, what happened to the political fairy story we're all waiting for?" And in that interview, she said it's now on a dress, and she doesn't know at that point, that's 2017, whether she's going to publish or not. There is an earlier tweet, March 2016. She was asked about it, not by an interviewer, just a general member of the public. And in the tweet, she said, "I didn't like it enough to publish it. It's in a drawer." So if you want to be hypercritical, it's not in the attic in 2016. It's in a drawer.
Well, we have pictures of the dress. Were the pictures of the dress at her 50th birthday party, were those published?
Not in that time period. So her friends Starsky and Cox published on their Twitter feed, and this was later. So this was in 2018, a photo of them at that fancy dress party with Joe, and clearly Joe is wearing a dress with writing all over it. It was that lost manuscript dress. She did tweet her own photo, and it was when it was announced that Robbie Coltrane, who played Hagrid in the films, sadly died. And there was a photograph of her at the same party, sat next to Robbie Coltrane. Of all of the photos that I've seen of that party, Robbie, I think, is the only one who's not wearing fancy dress, which I think is a very smart move. Other than Joe Rowling, he by far looked the best dressed person there. In May, so this is during lockdown, May of 2020, she tweets that she's editing 2 things with 2 different editors, and then we get the Dusty Box. Now, this is a lovely, heartwarming story of a childhood tale being told to her children. deciding, no, this is a special story for my family. I'm going to put that up in the attic for my family to treasure, and then seeing children at home bored with not enough to do, thought, what can I do for the national good, the international good? I will dust this story off for the good of mankind and publish it for free, which I think it's almost unprecedented for a work of that significance to be published absolutely for free. Heartwarming, except if you're a grumpy person from Oklahoma City who and I paraphrase rather than quote, said baloney. And John said baloney because there's a Q&A on her website, and which, full disclosure, I had missed. John found this and said, wait, hang on a minute. And in the Q&A, she says, I've just finished the fourth Galbraith novel, Lethal White, and I'm now writing the screenplay for Fantastic Beasts 3. After that, I'll be writing another book for children. I've been playing with the non-Harry Potter Wizarding World story for about 6 years. So it's about time I get it down on paper. Now, this looks to all intents...
Ha! See?
Yeah.
It can't have been conceived before 2007.
She was always planning to publish this. Yeah. So I put this timeline together, basically demonstrating that apart from that, everything says she stopped actively writing it no earlier than no later than 2012, and this other story is written between 2012 and 2018. There must be another children's book coming. Now, didn't get a lot of traction at the time, but this was my sort of spotting the first tentative identification of what would later become The Christmas Pig.
Really, Nick, and all I could do is to you. I was like, your what was it? Uranus was identified because
right.
One of the planets behaved differently, and so this one brilliant astronomer said, if you put a planet here, it's of this size, its gravitational pull will cause that orbital wiggle. And sure enough, they trained their telescopes there, and they found this extra planet. Now, you did the same thing. The cynics, I have to wear that tag now. The cynics said, no, this is just proof that that the Ickabog was
on those back channels. You weren't the only one, John. So I was getting told, Rowling's not very good with numbers. She's not very good with dates. You need to treat it with a pinch of salt.
Oh, well. So, major kudos to you, Nick, in that you actually thought, I think she's telling the truth. Those of us that said no, especially in the wake of the Robert Galbraith madness and deceits, can we just say lies? Wish that we weren't really putting that much trust in what she said, but you did, and you called The Christmas Pig. But the Ickabog, really, I'm still going to wear my tinfoil hat here, Nick, and think that when she put out that tweet, she gets that tattoo, supposedly a gift of her sister, and it doesn't really mean anything. It's just, one of these things. She was staging herself for a controlled demolition, and that her marketing people, whether they were on board with it or just, as you say, trying to contain the damage as the building falls and to lay the foundation for the new building, it makes sense. They blow up the building with the tweet. She goes silent. COVID happened. She couldn't know anything about the COVID thing happening, but she could have, she was clearly preparing for the onslaught that she was about to suffer from all the right-thinking people in the world. I always think that's funny, the right-thinking people. you know. Anyway, um, isn't it Orwell's thing is groupthink, right? Not wrong
That's
think, but yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's
groupthink.
definitely all the right thinking people were in groupthink at that time, you know. So she blows up her world, and then she lets out the rights to Philosopher's Stone, which I don't think you need to be a conspiracy theorist to say that's that's a nickel bag to the whole addictive thing of Harry Potter. You know, she's going to introduce a generation to Harry Potter. That's great. You know, give away the shortest book of the series for free that you have to read, and it's, you know, you've heard my story about that. It's a magnificent book. Without any of the poison of say the first book that people usually write, which is their psychological detritus, which would be the book that she was inspired to write on the airplane. Anyway, that um, and then she decides to release the Ickabog. I think that the Ickabog was either rewritten in wake of the madness after the tweet, or that for the previous year she had been working on it to rewrite it so that it would basically present her as Daisy Dovetail. And her apologetic to the world about what she was doing in this controlled demolition thing. It's easily the most neglected work in Rowling's oeuvre. I don't know if I've said this in this version of our Ickabog conversations, but the three books that are going to have a disproportionate appearance inside the critical biography, I believe, are certainly going to be Casual Vacancy, with the autobiography in story form, Christmas Pig, which, as a friend of mine recently said, if you're looking for lake items, you can just stick a pin in a page and there it is. You know? And then the Ickabog, which, other than Lana Whitehead's essay in Harry Potter and the Ivory Tower, there's been no conversation about the Ickabog and its allegorical meanings in terms of her life. And I think the fact that she's writing about an hermaphrodite monster who's not a monster is she's talking about not only, you could say that the Ickabog is transgender, but only in the sense of transcending gender, not in terms of crossing gender.
No.
The Ickabog is a hermaphrodite in the sense that he's both of these things simultaneously. And that is absolutely misunderstood, has been cast aside by people who assume things about her which are not true. I guess I should say it, you know, in the if you're a Latinist, you know that there's masculine and feminine and there's neuter, and neuter is not like what you do to your dog, you know, to take away its masculine or feminine thing. But the neuter is actually the conjunction of those two in the resolution of this. It's a positive. Well, in fact, neuter things are not less in Latin; they're more. And so, Rowling, by writing this story about an it, is writing that kind of story. Talking about this, I mean, really, the clues for this are in. Have we shifted to the shed portion?
Yes, you're solidly in the shed now, John.
I know. Wait a minute. Have I ripped, Nick out of the lake before it was time? The embedded story of the Ickabog is the Ickabog song, which comes in. Let me look at the Ickabog song. I think. Wow. Oh, I had this all marked up here. Here it is. Here it is in chapter 54 in the published version. I think maybe 53 in the version that came out. And in that, song, Daisy Dovetail, accepts the myth of the Ickabog and accepts that she's about to be eaten by this monster. But she begs the Ickabog not to eat her heart. Okay, and this is a she says, I think people need hope nearly as much as Ickabogs do. But she said, placing her hand over her heart, my mother and father are both still in here, and they always will be. So when you eat me, Ickabog, eat my heart last. I'd like to keep my parents alive as long as I can. Now, that in turn is a reference, and here I'm going to read you this page. I hope I can find it faster than the other one I did, which is Daisy and the Moon. This is a fairly long reading, Nick. Forgive me. Then night in her 6th year at Ma Gritner's, after tucking the Hopkins twins in for the night and promising them they'd see their mommy and daddy again soon. Keep that in mind. Daisy lay down beside Martha and looked up at the pale gold disk in the sky as usual and realized she no longer believed her father was alive. Mistaken belief. That hope had left her heart like a bird fleeing a ransacked nest. And though tears leaked out of her eyes, she told herself that her father was in a better place now, up there in the glorious heavens with her mother. She tried to find comfort in the idea that being no longer earthbound, her parents could live anywhere, including in her own heart, and that she must keep their memories alive inside her like a flame. Still, it was hard to have parents who lived inside you when all you really wanted was for them to come back and hug you. Unlike many of the orphanage children, Daisy retained a clear memory of her parents. The memory of their love sustained her, and every day she helped look after the little ones in the orphanage and made sure they had the hugs and kindness she was missing herself. Yet it was only the thought of her mother and father that it wasn't only the thought of her mother and father that enabled Daisy to carry on. She had a strange feeling that she was meant to do something important, something that could change not only her own life, but the fortunes of Cornucopia. She'd never told anyone about this strange feeling, not even her best friend, Martha. After all, who'd believe that a penniless girl locked up in an orphanage could save the country? Yet the strange belief burned stubbornly inside her like a flame that refused to go out. Now, that's what she's referring to when she speaks to the Ickabog after hearing the Ickabog song. And she begs the Ickabog to eat my heart last. I'd like to keep my parents alive as long as I can. That flame inside of her. Now, her name, she's a dovetail, which, is a reference to, I think, to the Holy Spirit, which is usually represented iconographically as a dove. And that she's the son of a carpenter as well. That she's sort of the Christian every woman inside this story. And she's a no one, and yet she feels if she can keep faith with this identity and love within her, okay, which is, she says she believes the people that are within her, her mother and father, really the archetypes of God and his transcendence and his immanence, are in the heavens, but these still live inside her like a flame, like tongues of fire, Nick, okay? And that this spirit is something that is her power. And she feels that she was born for something greater than being this penniless child in an orphanage. Now, Rowling, of course, is the champion of penniless children in orphanages, all children in orphanages, and she certainly had experience being penniless in terms of living on the dole as a single mother, and this love of the mother inside of her heart. And here she is, and I believe that she wrote those passages after her writing them for her children. I believe she was writing about herself and how she is doing this controlled demolition of her reputation and her fandoms and saying, I feel this is the important thing for me to do. I'm going to champion the transcendence of sex in the spirit. Okay, that hatred and bitterness destroy are that they were born or whatever from the Ickabogs and became human beings. But this hope, this love inside of her that she says is as important to human beings as to Ickabogs is the message of that. Sure enough, this girl and her heroic witness and her love for others, really a maternal love, and for the Ickabog, saves everyone. And that message was not something that she wrote, for her children. Perhaps. Maybe. I'm just skeptical enough to think that as part of this controlled demolition program, she released the rights to Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone so children could have that solace. And then she released the Ickabog, hoping that somebody would read it and understand what she was trying to say, or at least for historians. It certainly resulted in global goodwill against the avalanche. I mean, she'd lost thousands and thousands of followers on Twitter. She still stayed above 14 million followers. She still was, nobody had that platform, even though I think at this point she's not using it other than when she's announcing these good things, these heroic things. Nick, you'll remember what those Twitter threads were like then.
Yeah.
It was the worst kind of slander and libel and snark that you could possibly imagine on that platform, and all of us can imagine that because it was pure poison. I say 9 out of 10 of the tweets were about Rowling needing to be abused or canceled, etc. And on that platform, she would post pictures drawn by children around the world and celebrating this story, these images of the Ickabog, the misunderstood Ickabog, written, I think, in a mirror. That she's saying that this transgender, meaning transcending gender, beast is what we're all called to do. We're called to birth into the world, because the birthing process of Ickabogs, the borning, is a Solway et Coagula, right? That the thoughts that you have as you give birth are the things that go out into the world. They're your legacy. They're the things that you exteriorize from your interior. Everything that Rowling does in her magic is this exteriorization of the interior. That's the power of this story. It's a political fairy tale. We have a wonderful socialist, fairy tale ending. The government takes over everything, and that's all good. And I'm just like, we take all the land and redistribute the property. Like, oh, that couldn't be bad. CF Africa. Anyway, Rowling's core beliefs certainly coughed that up. But I'm saying that in the lake. But her genius was the heart thing, because the heart is traditionally a symbol of the human spiritual aspect. The transpersonal faculty continuous with the fabric of reality. You can call it conscience, which is in Latin is our shared knowing, or love, our union without elision in another. After Coleridge, it is the point of English high fantasy. In this tale, the contrast is between King Fred, who has an atrophied conscience that his conceit overwhelms and silences, and Daisy, who has put all of herself and her self-understanding into her heart. She does not begrudge the Ickabog's right to kill and eat her. She only asks that the monster treat that which is most precious, her heart, differently than the rest of her. Remember, she's a human being. She's born of hatred and bitterness, which of course touches the Ickabog's heart, hence the sniff he gives at the end of that. The Ickabog has told Daisy the founding myth or great meta-narrative of all Ickabogs. She has revealed in turn to the Ickabog the point of all story and narrative, the elevation and preservation of the heart. Rowling, as is her wont, is telling stories within her story about the telling of story and why story is so meaningful. The Ickabog is a political fairy tale, certainly, with a, forgive me, fairly predictable set of good guys and bad guys out of stock players' portfolio for fractured fairy tales. But I suspect as with Harry Potter, its most important message is less the truth to power cliches of the postmodern political allegory than it is the alchemical and spiritual experience. The anagogical story about story within the story, embedded beneath the obvious. We read with our hearts rather than with our individual rational capacities. And the message for the attentive heart is the takeaway. Rowling is writing allegories of the soul's journey to perfection in the spirit. In Harry Potter, she did this via the soul triptych with Harry, Ron, and Hermione in the roles of heart, body, and rational mind. In Cormoran Strike, she's writing Shakespearean or Spencerian psychomachia or soul allegory. Think of Red Cross, the Red Cross Knight and Una, Romeo and Juliet. With Robin and her partner as two birds. They're both named for birds. Castor and Pollux, hero and demigod, Psyche and Cupid. We'll talk about that next thing, right? Each must transcend their soul self or ego existent and understanding, or identity with this logos love in their heart, their transpersonal and spiritual capacity. And if you really don't get how important the heart is, just think about Deathly Hallows. You know, when Ron comes back to the crew, back to the light comes into his heart, and that takes him back to his friends. You know, or Dumbledore saying it's not, it's your heart that saved you here. Harry's power is this this interpersonal, self-transcending love for the other. That's what makes the heart as intellect so thick. And sure enough, when Rowling writes the ink black heart, we get that up close and centered. I mean, it is what all those poems are about. I'm going to put down below in the links something that I wrote about the heart in as an introduction to this subject for Ink Black Heart. It really is the point of Ink Black Heart. Another autobiographical piece, right, Nick? That this is really what Rowling is after, is this Christian longing for transcendence of the world and Christ's, the heart's victory over death, because this Christ, the incarnate logos, is the heart. Anyway, we talk about that year as being a horrible year for Rowling, and it certainly was in terms of the abuse she took publicly. But Nick, it actually, I think that critical historian, or just historians in later years, are going to say that it was easily the most productive year of her life with the work that she was, to have this book, the Ickabog, and that message, and Troubled Blood, so far the best and the most important of the Strike novels, and perhaps the best thing she's ever written. And with The Christmas Pig on the horizon, this is a phenomenal period of her writing, perhaps the peak of her productive life.
I think
certainly her
defining as well. I think it defined who she was going to be post gender critical revelations.
Yeah, I mean, she who shall not be named or pictured at the Leaky Cauldron, MuggleNet, Harry Potter lexicon that same year. Okay, the awards known as the Nibbies used to be the National Book Award, and nibs goes with pens. Anyway, announced their short list of author nominees in 9 categories for 2020. Okay, Rowling in her Annus Horribilis managed to take in 3 nominations across those categories. I mean, it really is astonishing. And then she won, and she's won a bunch of those. But that year she was given a special award for Philosopher's Stone as the most important book of the last 30 years. She's won more Nibbies than any other author, and the argument can be made that she deserved many more bestseller awards than she received. Okay. So how bad was 2020 for Rowling, really? She lost some Twitter followers, and she can shed those things 1,000 a day for 14 million. But not posting from December through except for these happy posts about kids' pictures, she still retained 14 million followers. Yeah. Okay. That's insane. Cursed Child is still opening up and so that. Now, I suppose being cast out and blacklisted by Harry Potter fandom for her heroic stand against the tide of political correctness and in defense of young people being all but forced into irreversible surgeries and transitions, that was a downer for her. But she has written about that, saying that her inbox has been filled with owls of admiration and gratitude from doctors, healthcare providers, parents, transgender people, all of whom have been effectively silenced by the online bullies of transgender activism. Okay. And I love it. In 2021, she got an award for bravery in writing the truth, which is the award that she should be getting annually for the next 10 years. You know, if this was her worst possible year, Nick, a time that any other author would consider a pinnacle of success, she's doing a lot more than all right. And I don't want to, I mean, we're saying like it's a bad thing that she had these marketing people handle her this controlled demolition and the process of doing it. That's not, I mean, congratulations are due to them, okay? Because they did this thing professionally and they scored. It took them 2 or 3 years to finally, for all the receipts to come in, but they were right. They were right, and their heroic stand changed the world, much like that little girl in the orphanage by trusting in her heart and the light that was in her heart from the love of her parents. Just like Daisy Dovetail, in other words, Rowling helped change the world for the better. And God bless her for that.
Wonderful. Thank you, John. I know my one main takeaway from this, as well as thinking back on what a remarkable 12 months really that was from December 19 to December 20 for Rowling personally, and for what we do with Hogwarts Professor in terms of studying what she's doing. It has highlighted that I need to go back and reread the Ickabog. It is, I think, the only one of her books I've only read once. So I read it online. I've got my digital copy because I was following all of the kids' photos, all of the kids' pictures when they were entering the competition, and I've been chatting with a couple of kids as well. And again, that was just a lovely period. So I wanted to own the permanent rights to that because I knew that would disappear. So I got my digital copy, but I haven't ever reread it. It is something I do need to do. It's a hole in my knowledge of J.K. Rowling.
You need to get the book, Nick. You need to get the book, because you can press it against your heart and not have to recharge it. It's a great.
It gets too wet out here, John. It gets too wet out by my lake. That's my problem.
Well, I had to blow the dust off here in my my crazy shed.
So that's the Ickabog. We've got quite some wait now, haven't we? Until Troubled Blood. How long do we have to wait?
2 weeks. I mean, there's an Ickabog sandwich around the Troubled Blood, right? Because she released it to the world. Most of us made copies of it ourselves by copying and pasting it. We didn't know what was going to happen to this. Troubled Blood is then released, and then the Ickabog is published in November.
Yes, yeah. That's the sort of traditional run up to Christmas. So a good time to launch a new book. And of course, all of the profits from that book go towards charities. So they go to they go to people who were struggling financially with the impact of the coronavirus.
Now that and this is not small change. No. When the only time that she's talked about that was, I think, the year after the publication. She said that she'd given £8 million, which is, at that point it was still over $10 million.
Yeah.
Nick, it takes me almost 6 weeks to make that much money.
Times are hard, John. Times are hard.
She just gave it away.
Yeah.
Just gave it away. I mean, it was the that summer was. Because I was caught in the wake of Rowling's Saw Away at Coagula boat because I celebrated her heroic stand, and I was canceled. I was canceled. The Ickabog episode of Reading, Writing, Rolling, the podcast on MuggleNet, was the last one I did there. They said that they were going to change the name of Reading, Writing, Rolling because we couldn't say her name on the show, lest it trigger her audience. And they go into meltdown because we were talking about a murderess. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that anybody would agree to that. And I couldn't believe anybody would be complicit with that, because that was just slander and libel. And yet, Nick, I think I'm the only Potter pundit that felt that way. And it meant the end of my public life. I mean, I had people cancel speaking dates. I had publishers refuse to look at the material that I was writing. It was pretty ugly. And so be it. So be it. I mean, obviously, Rowling went by in her yacht, and she survived it. She's only gotten much more abuse than I'll ever. My abuse was only tangential. But my little dinghy got turned over. But you know what? For books like this, Nick, and that kind of heroism, that an author who's talking about the heart, to the heart, about the heart. Wow, that's sui generis among authors today, really, and I'll always be grateful for that. I mean, I am not a Rowling toady. You can read my work at the time when Rowling came out in June and put that long thing up. I said, look, I'm not a Rowling toady. Here's all the things that I really don't like about Rowling. And I just read this last night. I was like, whoa, wow. Oh, Joe, right in the eyes. Here's where you're ugly and you're wrong and you're stupid. And I don't like the way you're dressed either, And then I said, but on this issue, though we come at it from different angles as to why this is a scourge and a historical nightmare, you're spot on, and Godspeed to you. And I had to close the comments on that, Nick, because the few people that were still reading me at that point, that weren't in the back channel, just said, forget it. But it's on the other side of that. It's great. We're still waiting for the reckoning. We're still waiting for people to apologize. We're still waiting for an invitation to come back. One of the MuggleNet people plagiarized my work and put out 2 books before their publisher got shut down over. I mean, it's just crazy time. Oh well. Sorry. It's such a downer here at the end, Nick.
But I'm going to bring us back up, because really excited about tomorrow's episode. So really? Troubled Blood is this is it for me as a fan of J.K. Rowling's work. This is my first midnight release. This is the first time I was there, caught up. I've read everything she's written. I'm waiting midnight, because that's when my digital book will get updated, waiting midnight for Troubled Blood to drop. What an exciting, and Fairy Queen, what an exciting time. So what are you going to look at the shed? No, I think there is so much. Can we cover it in one episode?
No, we can't cover any of these books in one episode.
No, that's true.
But yeah, Troubled Blood is. I mean, I've said this before. I'll say it again. That there's 3 books that are just really seminal to understanding J.K. Rowling. And I'm not going to put Casual Vacancy in there, Nick. I'm sorry. That's I'm just going to move that one off to the side. Ink Black Heart, the Ickabog, and Casual Vacancy. Those are your Lake Holy Trinity. Okay, yeah. I get that. Maybe Christmas Pig and the Ickabog do together. But if you want to get the shed side of things, you're going to go with Deathly Hallows, because it really is the climax and the sum and summary of the Hogwarts saga. Christmas Pig, because it's the crystallization of almost all of her artistic, genius. And then there's Troubled Blood, which is the monster. Is the book that I have a hard time imagining how she's going to top it. She's can the finale, like Deathly Hallows, when it was about to come out, we were all like, how can she top the things that she's been doing? And she did. I mean, she took it up you know,
Yeah.
it was and clearly she had been building up to it.
Yeah.
Those of us who have been disappointed in a way about the offerings after Troubled Blood, Ink Black Heart, and Running Grave were meh. I just wonder, what is she going to do with 8, 9, and 10? Can it be something like Deathly Hallows? Because what an achievement that was. Anyway, Troubled Blood is everything. It's literary illusion. It's psychomachia. It's literary alchemy. The symbolism of the cross alone inside these books. The symbolism of the water inside these books. Where do you start? Where do you start? I last night I went into my if you go to Hogwarts Professor, on the left column of the thing, there's all these spots, and it says individual Rowling works, and you go in there and you find all sorts, pillar posts for all the links for that stuff. On the actual column, though, on the homepage, I put one that just said J.K. Rowling's Troubled Blood, because there were so many things that we wrote about then, and that's not me and my tapeworm. That's you. That's Elizabeth Baird Hardy. That's Beatrice Groves, our Spencer experts. Louise Freeman. I mean, it was all of us were astonished and delighted by that book. And so, yeah, I can't wait to talk about. I'm going to talk about something we haven't talked about, I don't think, from the shed side of the house. We haven't talked about mythology, and I want to talk. And I want to talk about one scene specifically. I want to talk about the scene where Strike tells Robin that you're my best mate, and how that scene is an inversion and yet a retelling of the Cupid and Psyche myth. What are you going to do for the lakeside?
So if we're going to have two shows, I'm going to split my lake in two. So I'm going to, probably next episode, I'm going to look at astrology, and sort of frame it as J.K. Rowling believes in astrology seriously. And possibly for the second show, I'd like to explore J.K. Rowling in Clerkenwell, about the area, and about J.K. Rowling and the area.
Okay, I'm probably then, because I'm not prepared. I want to do the true book, I guess, for my second part. The embedded text. I struggle to remember the true book in the previous thing I got here. But Talbot's true book will build on your astrological piece, because wow, the illustrations alone in Troubled Blood are
quite disturbing. Yeah.
Yeah, but just genius. And the way she's, it's almost iconographical in terms of all the embedded meanings and the stuff. And yet no one talks about it. I mean, it's really astonishing that she clearly drew these things herself, right? And it's the fact that each one of them includes an embedded tarot card spread. Really, just words fail me, Nick, and that's saying something, right? To talk about Troubled Blood. So I look forward to our next adventure here at the Lake in the Shed Kanreki experience.
Oh, excellent. Look forward to it, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, take care.